Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Today, we're going to be doing a showdown. Ayaka versus Ganyu, the two premier top cryo characters in the game. We're going to be breaking down which one of them is stronger, more valuable, the quirks and features of each character, where they shine, where they don't, and my personal opinions to help you decide, is the current banner worth going for? Is Ayaka worth going for? Should you be saving for our favorite Coco Goat, as her rerun may be just around the corner as well? Both of these characters have had amazing community reception. Both of them are considered two of the strongest units in the game, for sure two of the strongest cryo units in the game, and cryo in the past has been an extremely important element, one that was almost considered for a long time to be a must get, and so one of these characters were considered to be a must get at one time. At this point, I don't think that that's the case anymore. One of the best uses for cryo before, of course cryo is extremely useful, but freeze teams have been extremely strong for a long time, and these two made up two of the best freeze teams, Ayaka Freeze and Morgana for Ganyu. One of these used to be an absolute requirement. There are also lots of Hydroelectors, which are in the Abyss right now. These were two of the best characters for dealing with some of those mechanics. Now it's totally different because Freeze is not as relevant, and Dendro is even better at dealing with those Hydro shields than the cryo characters are, which is crazy. And at this point in the game, neither one of these two I would consider mandatory units. So let's get that straight out of the way. You do not need to wish for either of these characters to clear the game, to have a good account, to progress in the game. There was a time when people would have argued, and I may have argued, that was the case. It is definitely not the case anymore. You can feel confident skipping both of these units without feeling like your account will be behind. Absolutely. So I want to make that clear. But if you're someone like me, who when I first started playing this game, you're looking at these two characters and you're thinking to yourself, man, these both look really good characters. People speak very highly of both of these, and I'm not sure really which one I want to get. I like them both. I like Ayaka and I like Ganyu as well. I know Ayaka is on the banner right now. Should I be wishing for her? Or I kind of like Ganyu. Should I be saving for Ganyu? Her rerun might be coming soon. You know, maybe you picked up the Amos bow from the standard banner or something and you're thinking to yourself, man, I could go for Ayaka now, everyone says she's great, or should I save for Ganyu? So starting off with teams, both of these characters have premier units that are in their best teams. So for Ayaka, her premier team is Kokomi, Shenhe, and Kazuha, all 5-star units, and if you were to max her out, you'd probably be giving her the Mist Splitter 5-star weapon as well. But none of those things are required. I would consider the order of importance, I would say Kazuha is the most important thing you can get to make your Ayaka team better. Once you have Kazuha, you can make do with the free-to-play weapon. I would argue it's one of the best free-to-play weapons in the game. The Amanoma Kageuchi is amazing, and it's an amazing use of your sword billets. I've never struggled to clear the Abyss with the Amanoma. As far as the teams go, I would consider Kazuha the most important, and then if you want, you can go for Shenhe and you can go for Kokomi, but Mona or Xingqiu are going to be totally fine for her freeze teams. Ganyu is a little bit of a different case. She has more flexibility in the sense that you can run her in a freeze or in a melt team. Her melt team, you basically pretty much need Zhongli. You can get away with Diona or Dea, but I don't really like either of those teams very much. Zhongli is definitely the better choice for that, and then you use Xiangling and Bennett as the other two characters for the melt team. You can also do Nahida. You can have Nahida in there. You can have Shenhe in there. But I think the majority of people stick with Xiangling Bennett. You can also use Kazuha instead of Xiangling, but I think the majority of people stick with Xiangling Bennett as the pairing that they go with Ganyu, and then Zhongli is the 4th slot. For her freeze teams, she can use very similar teams to Ayaka. The big difference, I would say, is that you really need a 5-star Hydro to make her work, and the 5-star Hydro can't be Yelan. You cannot really use a Ganyu freeze team with Xingqiu or Yelan, or really with Barbara. You have to have either Mona or Kokomi or Ayato, perhaps. I don't really like Ayato all that much, but it does work pretty well. It becomes more of an Ayato freeze team than it does a Ganyu freeze team. I don't really prefer Ayato. I look forward to getting, Mona and Kokomi, and as a result, her freeze team ends up being even more expensive than Ayaka's freeze team because she really wants either Kazuha or Venti. She really needs a good Hydro, and the second cryo is just as flexible as Ayaka's. Obviously, Shenhe is the best choice, but you can also use Diona, you can use Rosaria, Kaya, and this is something that I really want to stress because when I first got Ganyu, I didn't have any of these partnering characters. I still really don't have very many partnering characters, and so my perception of Ganyu is actually warped. It's actually a bit lower than it probably should be. For those of you who saw my tier list, maybe I ranked Ganyu lower, felt she should have been. It's possible that that's because I don't have her best 5-star supports. I don't have Zhongli, I don't have Venti, I don't have Kokomi. I will be getting all of, and I haven't lost my 50-50 to Moni yet. I will be getting all these characters as soon as they rerun, because here on Jello Impact, we build every single character to help you, but I do not have them yet. And so as a result, although I can always clear with Ganyu, or usually clear with Ganyu, their teams don't feel as strong to me. They don't feel as good. And this is something that I just want you to be aware. I think Ayaka slightly wins the team section if we're going to rank on which one is better with teams. But Ganyu also does have both Melt and Freeze, whereas Ayaka sort of has, she can do Mono Cryo, of course, but Ganyu can too, although I definitely don't like Ganyu's Mono Cryo. So I would slightly give the edge on teams to Ayaka, but only very slightly. I could easily see you arguing that Ganyu wins on the team slots, but it does hinge on you having Zhongli, on having Mona or Kokomi for your AoE Hydra application. Next thing I want to talk about is how they actually perform and the kinds of abyss that they work in. So Ganyu is basically made for AoE, for groupable content that you can unload her burst, you get that quadratic scaling, and it's truly, truly spectacular how much damage she really does in those situations. I personally haven't been able to feel it because I don't have Venti, and you almost kind of need Venti, in my opinion, in a freeze to really take advantage of what Ganyu can do. In the early days of the game, this team absolutely dominated Morgana, which is Ganyu, Mona, Diona, and Venti. It was considered Morgana. This was considered the premier Genshin Impact team, as it can just clear waves and waves of trash mobs with absolutely no issues. The thing I would say is that Ayaka also can use Venti, and she can do very similar things. Yes, the damage isn't quite as high because it's not true quadratic scaling, it's just good AoE scaling, but I would argue that Ayaka has superior boss killing in freeze. In melt, it's a different story because Ganyu, it has really, really good on-demand damage. So for example, this particular abyss, both of them have their pros and cons, right? The Wii Nut is really annoying to hit. Ganyu can have those sustained charge shots that you can unload right at the right time when the Wii Nut becomes available, and you can get a nice DPS window on the Wii Nut, whereas Ayaka, you have to time it really well to make sure you unload her burst when the Wii Nut's first coming up, so that you can get as much damage as possible. So both of them have their pros and cons in the Abyss. In general, Ayaka's a bit better of a boss killing, although Melt Ganyu is very, very good as well. When both of them work, they work really well. So it's a real toss-up as to which one. Again, in general, for me personally, I feel, and from the calculations that I've seen, I think Ayaka slightly wins in the Abyss scenarios, just because where Ganyu really, really shines are those groupable trash mobs that her burst can get that quadratic scaling. Whereas Ayaka, yeah, she's good, but not as, I just think that those aren't as difficult of chambers, and they're not as common of chambers. And so for that reason, in my eyes, Ayaka wins out. In terms of account value, which is the next spot I want to talk about, value is very interesting because you value flexibility often when you look at account value. So someone like Ganyu, because she can be used as a burst support, the Hyper Fridge burst support, or off-field for on-field Ayako, you can throw her into a Melt team with Melt Diluc or Melt Hu Tao, and so she has a lot more flexibility in terms of her teams because she can be used as a burst, a burst off-field damage user or off-field burst support. Whereas Ayaka definitely can't, you can use her as a burst support, but you generally need a full team built around her to get her the energy she needs. So I would say for account value, as always with value, it's very, very difficult. Neither of them are must pull. Both of them add value to your account. It really depends on what you're looking for. I would say the better boss crushing abyss fighting character might be Ayaka, so that might be more valuable. But if you value that flexibility, then it may be Ganyu. I also want to talk about their free-to-play accessible weapons. So Ganyu has access to the prototype Crescent, whereas Ayaka has access to the Amenoma. Both of them are fantastic free-to-play options. You can get Ganyu's signature bow from the standard banner or from losing the 50-50 on the weapon banner, which is a huge plus. Whereas Ayaka's Mist Splitter is a really good upgrade for Ayaka, a much bigger upgrade than Ganyu, and her actual best bow, which is the Hunter's Path, we're not really sure if that'll ever appear on banners ever again. So hopefully it does. In terms of artifact sets, both of them can use the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer for freeze teams, and Ganyu can use Wanderer's Troop, she can use Shimanawa's, she can use, I think there was another set that I can't remember, Gilded Dreams, I think she can use. Both of them have very, very excellent choices and very efficient choices for artifact sets. I don't think either one really wins out on that. Maybe Ganyu wins out slightly because she has access to more different types of of artifact set, but I think the Blizzard Destroyer is such a universal set that you can definitely go for that. And it's in the strong box anyway, so it's very, very... In terms of playstyle quirks, both of them have their pros and cons. So some people really don't like Ayaka's dash. They don't like all of her damage is front loaded into her burst, and she doesn't have very much sustain. So it can be very annoying if you miss her burst, if you're not used to it. Whereas Ganyu, if you don't really like the aim and shoot playstyle, or if you're on mobile, it can be a bit more difficult. So both of them have kind of their quirks they have to win around. I don't think anyone really wins out in comfortability, ease of use. I personally find Ayaka a bit more fun, but I don't think it. I think she's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more engaging. But I really do like Ganyu's burst. It's very, very fun to use. So they both have their pros and cons. I wouldn't really call a winner on that sense. If you're feeling a little bit chilly today, if you want to warm up, just hit that like button down below. If you're liking the video, if you're finding it helpful and informative, it means a lot to me, and it helps it spread to more people. In terms of my personal feeling, and again, this is very biased, I personally like Ayaka a lot more. I like her playstyle more, but I will be doing a review on Ganyu, especially a new review and a new showdown when I get the different supports that Ganyu actually needs, because it just so happens that I didn't end up wishing for all those supports on the first time, and so I definitely recognize that I could be biased towards Ayaka. But as a free-to-play person, if you're trying to build a free-to-play team, if you're new, I definitely recommend Ayaka over Ganyu, because you can actually build a team around them, versus Ganyu, you really have to have those 5-star units for her to really feel like she functions properly. And finally, for aesthetics and overworld, both of their aesthetics are absolutely fantastic. They both have great voice acting, great lore. They look awesome. Both of their outfits are amazing, and both of them are, you know, very pretty characters. I love their idle animations. Both of them are fantastic. All their burst skills, their animations, everything about them looks great. In the overworld, they also really both have their massive pros. Ayaka is really good because she can run on water forever, and that's really neat. It's really good for exploration, very, very useful. And Ganyu is amazing because she can clear out mobs from ages away. You can aim up and shoot from really far away, destroy those hilly trail towers from a long ways off. So they both have really great pros for the overworld. And then I guess the final thing I would say is, if you like them both, you can get them both. You can use them together. I've used them together many times, and it is very fun. And you can also use them on either side of the abyss, right? They don't have to compete. Ganyu can rock a melt team, and Ayaka can run a freeze team. That's probably what I'll be doing. That's why I have Ganyu on my Honor Wanderer's troop set. It is a pretty good artifact set. I have pretty good stats. They're not absolutely insane, but they are good stats, especially considering she gets her crit rate passive and she's rocking the Amos bow. My Ganyu is also well built, so both of them well built. Let me know who you think wins. Based on the clear times that I've showed throughout this abyss, Ayaka did seem to clear faster, but again, my teams are not optimal for Ganyu, so I'm looking forward to getting those in the future. If you want to see my full review of Ayaka, check that video out over there. And if you want to see how every single Genshin Impact character stacks up against each other, check out the tier list over there. Thanks a lot.